who's joined by Fnatic's beast of a bottom lane.
Thanks, guys. I'm joined by both Yellowstar and Reckless after that domination of a series now. First off, you're now 21-0 in this split. What do you take away from games like this? Because you're not losing, you're making very few mistakes.
We're taking like game by game, step by step, and we're really focusing. We had a lot of preparation coming into these games, and now our next objective is going to be Origin. They are like really strong opponents. We've been screaming against them, and I think it's going to be really good games as well. But here we were really prepared. We knew the strategies of Unicorns, and they basically had like 2 strategies, and we pretty much shut them down with those bans.
Yeah, it definitely looked like you shut them down. And also, Reckless, we saw you play Sivir in a lot of those games there. You've been playing more of these team-orientated picks. How has that been for you as a player?
I've never really been known as like a lane ADC, so therefore team-oriented AD carries such as Sivir or Corki is pretty much a perfect fit for me. I can play the lane to go equal at worst or ahead if we have a good matchup, and then just go from there. I try to make calls aside of Yellowstar and just be some sort of backbone for the team because we have kind of star players with Huni and Reignover and Fabivin in the front doing a lot of cool plays. So me being a backbone is definitely not a bad thing. I think it's definitely needed for this team as well. Someone has to be.
Yeah, and it's definitely worked for the team over the split, 21-0. Now, looking towards Worlds, you guys have definitely, well, you've qualified for Worlds, you haven't got the seed just yet. Have you looked towards any of the teams who have already qualified, SKT, Yoi Flash Wolves?
Yeah, and definitely LGD this morning. I don't know, man. All these teams look really strong, and they play a lot of different stuff from we do. So it's going to be really interesting to face them. Even though we already had a taste at MSI, it was really cool, and I'm really looking forward to it. But before that, we have to focus on Origin. I really want to win against them.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, last question for you, Reckless. How do you think that matchup is going to go? Origin in the grand finals here. They've looked very strong throughout the split. This is the first split for them. What do you think of them right now?
Before we went into this semifinal against Unicorns, we were screaming a lot against Origin. And we kind of found them being able to fight us, which is something that we could not say for all the teams during the split. So definitely I would consider Origin one of the better teams right now here in Europe, and definitely a top contender of getting the first spot. So I wouldn't say the finals is going to be anywhere close to easy, and I wouldn't expect us to clean sweep them. I think they are going to put up a very good fight, both in draft and in actual game. So I'm looking forward to it because it's going to be on my home field in Sweden as well. So maybe the pressure is on them.
Well, we're all looking forward to that matchup. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and congratulations once again on that great split. We're going to throw it over to the desk to take a look at that game.
Thank you so much, Pulse. Well, these two, even after that performance, level-headed, keeping a clear eye. Just note that after this, of course, the action in North America is going to pop off with Team Liquid versus TSM. But we were pretty fast here today, so we need some time to set it up over there. That gives us some time to look back at the series. I want to pick in on you, Yamato Cannon, with the interview here with Reckless, where he says, it's actually perfect for me, this playstyle. And it's quite interesting to me, because I know that when he was on Alliance, a lot of times we're like, oh, he's this Prophecy AD carry, but he's not being aggressive enough. It seems that this has all fallen in place.
There is like one sentence I despise hearing. This guy should play more aggressive. What does that even mean? You need to take a look at the matchup, analyze his role in the team. And as he said, he's the backbone. Yeah.
Yep.
Simple. I mean, it's true. We see this first pick Sivir every game, mainly a takeaway from VODS, but also because Fnatic as a team really use the utility so well to force these team fights. So having an AD carry who can always at least go even is going to help Fnatic a lot also moving forward against international teams where we have some fantastic bot lanes they're going to have to face.
Yeah, there have to be a lot to learn from this. Let's bring up the picks and bans from this last game to look at the adaptation, maybe from the side of UOL as well. They dropped the Ezreal, but they got the Kayle.
Clown Fiesta Kayle. What was surprising about it, Kayle, like sure, he wants to surprise the enemy team, but Kayle is not good against Rumble. Kayle is not good against most of these picks, and he went Devourer. How does that make sense? Devourer mid lane.
Yeah, we heard Kayle jungle Devourer when it first came out patches and patches and patches ago, but the problem here is you just can't generate the Devourer stacks fast enough without getting involved in every single kill and snowballing really hard very early on. I I guess I kind of would have liked the idea had they paired it with like a hyper carry bottom lane as well. The problem is VODS isn't a hyper carry. He's not going to play something that is going to scale super well, so you've got no target to ult other than yourself.
Yeah, we talked about this a lot during the game, of course, how Unicorns are drafting compositions which would be good at snowballing an AD carry with the Shen down the bottom lane. Obviously, not the style they've been playing. Also, again, the Kayle in the mid. Before the Runeglaive nerfs, I had seen some Runeglaive mid lane Kayle coming in, and I wondered, because he already ran the Ezreal with it, is he just completely outdated for Power Weaver? Was he going to do exactly the same to be a bit more burst focused? Then he goes Devour. Doesn't even start taking a lot of camps for himself. Very surprised about the way he played it, and obviously was way too slow at scaling up. Didn't even get the full stacks on Devour.
Until I see the picks and bans for HUK versus UOL, it can be mind games, man. I'm sticking to my guns.
I mean, yeah, it might be mind games, might not be good, you know. You can always surprise with different picks like Runeglaive Ezreal. Doesn't mean it's a strong pick. Dexter, as a jungler, why do you hate Devour? Tell me and tell the viewers.
Why I hate Devour? I think Devour just puts you in an awkward position where your jungler, your early game tool to make you go ahead, take dragons, group up and everything, it just makes you slow down the game from your perspective in your team, and you don't want that. You want to have a tempo jungler, potentially. You want to be on the front where you actually invade aggressively and take the camps away. I mean, it could be a point for Devour because you stack it up faster, but in the end it takes too much time to actually be useful. And most of the time we have a jungler that is useful in the early game, falls off later in the mid to late game, and then the other team takes over. But it's the complete reverse when you have a Devour jungler where you make an early game team and have a late game jungler, but you might already have lost the game and you don't know how the game is supposed to go out. So I think Devour junglers are a bit... I mean, even in solo queue, everyone knows when you have a Devour jungler in a solo queue game, you just want to FF the game at 20 minutes because you know he's just gonna coolly farming his jungler. Yeah, guys, don't worry, I will carry in 30 minutes, but the game has already been over. So that's why Devour jungler is bad, and you should not pick it.
All right, well, we've learned that. We're going to get back on that in a second, maybe, although we heard a lot. But Pulse is actually standing by with Daylor, so we can hear from him.
Thank you very much, Sharks. I'm joined by Daylor just to talk about how he thinks his team is looking right now. Obviously, very good now. Daylor, after this split 21-0, how do you look at these games and kind of improve as a team? Because you don't have losses to go back and look at.
In every game, even if it's a win, there's a lot of mistakes. So we're always looking into detail. So at the beginning of the, in the first split, we were working on the basis, on the very basic stuff. And then when we covered this, we just started working on getting better at core things like communication, or it could be vision, playing around our spikes. And so in every game, there's a lot of details that can be improved.
Yeah, and also, we've seen the incredible growth of Fnatic over this split. I kind of want to ask about your support staff as well, which has obviously grown over the season. How has that helped your team improve?
I think it's really important. We have since the beginning of the first split, we have an analyst, and now we are growing, getting more analysts or more stuff. And I think it's extremely important because they give you more detailed information. So in my case, I can make better decisions. So we can create better plans in detailed plans. So we are, as a team, way better prepared.
And looking very prepared. I actually kind of want to contrast Spring Fnatic to Summer Fnatic right now, because when we saw them in Spring, Fnatic were all laughs after a game, and now when we see them, even after like a snowball victory, they're just dead cold. It's like silent cold killers. Is that something you taught them, or did that just happen organically?
I never told them this. It's just that on the first split, it's like everything was new. We were more excited. We were a new team. So every win was more emotional. But along the road, we learned that we need to kind of control our emotions to be able to perform. So going back to the question about how to improve, now we're looking into details. So even if we have a really clean game, we are calm because we are thinking about our details. So even though we are happy, of course, we will not be overly excited.
Right, and you've been looking at your game obviously a lot. Are you going to be looking towards your own game or Origin's game as you go into the finals? Who are you going to be focusing more on?
For sure, I will look on them, but for sure I will look on us. So there's nothing special. I will prepare like I'm preparing for every other matchup.
Well, perfect. Thank you very much, Daylor. Congratulations on an amazing split so far. We're going to throw it back to the analyst desk to take another look at the game.
Thank you so much. Always like hearing from Daylor. He doesn't do it that often. He prefers to stay out of the limelight, although, you know, we have the swaggy pants in Life of Legends, though. We've seen those a couple of times. Yamato, he is our coach of the split as well. What makes him such a good coach for you?
I think even though Fnatic has had this 21-0 record, I think improvement is still visible. That is what is very incredible about what he has done. And I also agree with the fact that the thing is, with emotions, they're very inconsistent. That's why, like, you need to look at League of Legends as its business. You have to be stone cold, no emotions, because they can distract you and kind of get in the way of what you want to accomplish.
I think one of the most interesting things regarding Daylor, his coaching staff, everything, is his support staff, his analysts aren't all going out there, getting themselves out, onto social media, that kind of thing, and letting a lot out there. Because, when you're at the top, if you give too much away as an analyst, as somebody part of a team, people can pick up on that. And teams will start to read into what your coaching style is, what you're looking for in a game. And I find it very intriguing that Fnatic as a team only ever let you know what they want you to know. The same with like their Life of Legends, what they tweet about, the things their players talk about in interviews. Fnatic don't let too much go too often, and they hold their cards to their chest.
Not like this rocket coach here, just sharing everything out there.
I don't quite mean that. I don't quite mean that. But I think
you will never know.
Dexter, what do you think of this approach? You're a player who's also, of course, very much in the limelight when it goes good and bad.
I mean, yeah, when it goes good, you definitely don't want to share anything. I mean, back in the days, Season 3, when we were in Lemon Dogs, we never shared anything what we want to practice or what we're going to come up with anyone. We just want to practice our stuff, and then when the time is there, we're going to pull it out. And then we give people time to analyze while we work on the next thing, so we're always going to be a step ahead. But when you're in a bad position, I would say, I think you soak in everything you can. You try to get a different opinion. Like, that's why you have an analyst now and a coach that help you out with a different perspective. And I think it's really important to have like proper coaching stuff, because that are like, you can only rely on those people, and they are close to your team, and they try to help you. And you can't really take anything. You should take everything with a grain of salt, what you hear from other people too. So I think that's the most important thing to take away from that.
And of course, the opinions we see a lot of fans have of teams when they are performing poorly. Luckily for Fnatic, didn't have to worry about any criticism. This split, they won every single game. We have still seen some people come out and say, are they really that good? Are they getting overhyped coming into Worlds? Now they're already locked in the spot. But just looking at Fnatic compared to every other team we have here in Europe, they are fantastic. They are, of course, a level above the rest. We have to see what Origin can do in the final. But this team should be able to represent Europe properly at Worlds.
Yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit more in a second. On that, though, the Unicorns of Love, of course, in this matchup, not their best matchup, and you talk about how people react on social media to things. UOL has been on the receiving end of a lot of criticism all the time. Not to say it is, in some places, not deserved, but it does mean something if this team still manages to get to the semifinals twice in a row in one final. What does that say about, just the ecosystem of the teams, Rimaru?
I think why the team has taken so much criticism, well, not, I don't even know if it's true, but like when I take a look at Unicorns of Love, I feel already from the first split, their philosophy about the game was practicing and improving something that was so inconsistent. Like, I prefer solid play. For example, HTK from the start, they promoted solid play and improved their solid play from the start. Unicorns of Love have kept promoting this inconsistent play. In the end, when the teams get better, they're going to kind of fall behind, because inconsistency will just fall behind in the end.
I think we have to look at some of the players on the team, because now we talk about how they have these risky play styles. We don't always agree with the pick and ban phase coming in, but we got to look at the players and say they have some fantastic playmakers. I mean, Power Weevil has shown time and time again he can win games. Hylissang has shown time and time again as well with these roams he's pulling off. So despite them not always having what we consider an optimal pick and ban phase, they tend to pull it off. But then also sometimes we have to look at other teams preparing against Unicorns. And it doesn't seem like they respect what they can do. And they say, oh, Unicorns of Love, they have whatever, let's say, poor shot calling, so we can just have an easy time against them. And then we get into this situation where we have some wombo combos or early roams coming from Hylissang, like against you guys, which surprises teams anyway. And then suddenly the game snowballs out of control. And that's where Unicorns have done a fantastic job picking up some wins. But we also do see the difference when they face a team then like Fnatic, how one-sided it is, both in pick and ban phase, but also in game.
Yeah, I just want to add the fact that like this inconsistent playstyle, it works against worse teams in a way. Like Rocket's performance was not the best in the quarterfinals. I think it was fairly obvious. And with that in mind, it's more about the long term. What is the goal long term with a team that plays with this kind of a playstyle? You can't really see a team like this competing against the best of the best. I think that should be the long-term goal for any team out there.
Dexter, anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add, okay.
All good.
No problem. We also have to look at the team that has done very well in this series. Of course, Fnatic 21-0, and who the best player was for us. And well, just like he was throughout the season, Yellow Star was key to Fnatic's march to the summer finals. Today, in our opinion, of course, all the players always step up. But you were saying something interesting during the game. I think it was the early invade from the Unicorns. And you say Yellow Star does things mechanically and makes decisions that not a lot of other players do.
I think like there was this invade where like Sivir got invaded. I think I'm just gonna, I don't want to paint the picture, but you can see clearly here like the engage was perfect. I think it's the synchronization of ultimates and the engages are just beautiful. Like I kind of voted for Yellowstar to get the MVP simply because his play throughout this series was flawless. I could not spot any mistake.
Right, and I think that's kind of the point we have to get to now with Fnatic is like, we have to look at the mistakes they do make and then say, okay, this was a mistake. We're not going to let you get away with that because you're so much better and you're on the road to Worlds now. So Fnatic, Yellow Star made the least amount of mistakes, but I think had this been a regular season game, any one of those, I think you probably could have given an MVP performance to a couple of players in there. But like honestly, as we said, we have to hold Fnatic accountable because we know they are going to be annoyed at their mistakes themselves.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, even Rainover, I think Rainover played really good on that Olaf, went completely off that one game, and I'm not sure how much Fnatic actually showed in that series. I mean, do you expect anything crazy from them in the final?
I mean, just the fact they showed the Elise is one big deal. It forced Unicorns to change the pick and ban phase in the start. And then the fact you can just run this Olaf comp twice in a row. It is another threat you add when you have a jungle pick that can be a carry for them with Rainover here. But overall, I mean, if we look at Fnatic and what they showed, a little bit greedy from time to time. Game 2 and Game 3 it was like Game 1 was 100% full focus. Like, let's test how strong is the Unicorns of Love. Fnatic rolled over them. Then in Game 2 we had the dive down bottom lane without the Alistar ulti. We had Huni overextending a few times. It seemed like they kind of dropped the focus a little bit, but that's not really showing to me a lot of weakness because greedy or being too greedy in your shot calling is very easily fixable. I mean, you just say next time we don't have an Alistar ulti, don't go for that dive. And you try and communicate a bit more to Huni, relax and move back. So no, they didn't show anything. They didn't have to show anything in this matchup here, other than Elise is, of course, a jungler Rainover can play.
I would like to add as well, when it comes to Fnatic's pick and ban strategy, I don't think they're the type of team that needs to shock in a way. I think they're the type of team, like, based off of their history, simply in every single game they've played, is that they plan out for every possible scenario to have maximum consistency. They don't get surprised by any specific bans. They've planned out for every scenario. And I think that is the best way of making a pick and ban phase.
Yeah, let's actually talk a little bit more about Fnatic in a sec. I do want to remind the guys at home, of course, that the NALCS is coming up with TL versus TSM. Right after this, they're getting set up over there. But we're going to check in on Twitter first. A tweet from @LeonWindorfer. What do you think are Fnatic's chances at Worlds? What influence will this have on Western esports, especially the first part of that question is something we just want to talk about.
I talked about it a little bit earlier. I think Fnatic will probably consider Worlds to have been a massive disappointment if they don't get out of groups. I think everybody would say they have to. I think Fnatic will be very disappointed if they don't get into the top 4. That's where I feel like they should be placing. I then think it comes down to what semi-final would they be on. This is a long, long way away, and you know, obviously there's a lot of top teams, but that's my estimation for Fnatic this Worlds.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Fnatic should be realistic going into Worlds. I mean, they've been undefeated, of course, but let's be real. Chinese and Korean top teams are a lot tougher opponents than they have faced here in Europe. So I think a top 4 finish at Worlds should be the most optimal and realistic way for Fnatic, and I think the top 4 finish is still really great. So that's the most realistic way for them to approach Worlds, I think. But definitely it would be a huge upset if they don't go through groups.
I would like to add as well, in terms of the Western esports question, I think the fact that structure behind teams is improving. I think that is the biggest thing that we notice, and why there is like a team like Fnatic can have similarities to the top teams in the Asian regions, because esports is just so much more established.
And that's why I think Fnatic right now as a team, no matter what happens at Worlds, just looking at what they've done here in the summer split, is the key thing for Western esports. Because beforehand, teams will always look to Korea and China being, okay, what are these teams doing? What coaching staff do they have? How do they handle subs and whatever. Now we have a team in Europe who is showing that they can get so far ahead of the competition in their own region. What tools are they using? Okay, we know they have a great coach coming in. We now hear they have multiple analysts working for them. They have a manager living with the team, taking care of all the business, and all the stuff. So the players just have to focus on playing. And what combination of players have they put together? So now suddenly teams can look more to just a team in their own region instead of always looking to Korea and be like, oh yeah, but we can't change the European mentality, on some of the players. But we've just seen Fnatic have 2 Koreans, of course, but Reckless, Febiven, and Yellowstar are 3 hungry players who seems to have exactly the same attitude as the best Korean players we see. So I like the fact we can look at Fnatic. How can other teams adapt to what they're doing and use that to get better as well?
And probably hope that it isn't a 3-0 sweep in the summer finals versus Origin. It goes to 5 games, and we see Fnatic getting pushed a little more than they have, honestly, here. With that, Fnatic locked in Worlds, and then from @TheTitan84, I want to ask you guys, what teams do you think will go to Worlds from Europe? Yamato, I don't think I have to ask.
I think H2K and I think also Fnatic, obviously. Well, genius.
Just say it.
And like the Gauntlet, Rocket.
Okay.
I don't like making predictions like this. You put me on the spot.
Well,
I don't
you've
like
said
making
a couple of times already, the Gauntlet, we had a series to practice. We got good chances there, so I mean...
We have good chances, but you roll a dice, you don't expect to roll a 6 every time. It's like, I think we have good odds. It depends on how practice goes. I believe in the guys, and I'm very confident we can pull it off.
Dexter, does Rocket make it to Worlds?
I really like you, Yamato, but I think H2K, OG, and Fnatic might go to Worlds.
Come on, 2-0. 2-0 versus Origin, man.
Yeah, but we 2-0'd you too, so does that mean we go to Worlds?
The problem is, Yamato...
Stay salty, man.
And Yamato, you do need 3 wins in a best-of-5 as well. So you can go 2-0 up again, but if Origin pull it out, I feel like it...
Hey, what if Origin win the split?
True. Could be Fnatic.
Come on.
No, Fnatic could have points.
Fnatic
could have points.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Safe one. You said it, H2K, Origin, and Fnatic. However, Unicorns, of course, plays H2K the 3rd place match in Stockholm, and the winner will get the 2nd seed and go to Worlds.
If Fnatic wins.
Yeah, unless Fnatic loses the finals. So we definitely cannot count out Unicorns yet, despite losing 3-0 to Fnatic. H2K also, honestly, lost pretty heavily against Origin yesterday. So we have 2 teams who have a lot of problems they need to fix in just a week, and then show up and see if they can make it to Worlds.
Yeah, we'll see what they make it to Worlds.
The thing is, I just want to talk about the Unicorns of Love H2K thing. It's like, I feel both have sides of issues, obviously, but I feel like the H2K have the talent to supply and to kind of fix these issues, because I feel the biggest issue was the draft and kind of confidence in game. And with that in mind, they have a player on the bench, and I think these players that they have a massive champion pool, like individually. And I feel like learning Kalista in a week, too hard. It's too hard. I cannot believe it.
And Fnatic just showed how you can draft against the Unicorns of Love. They picked almost the same every single game. VODS and Lucian 3 times in a row.
Well, to be fair, if you're forced on Lucian 3 times in a row, then you're kind of in a bad spot.
But that's the thing, yeah. Again, now Fnatic showed they highlighted some weaknesses. We saw Power Vivo try and find new picks. Go back to Runeglaive Ezreal. We saw Devour mid lane from Kaelsar. Like, he was clearly cycling through a lot of different picks he's been practicing, didn't find anything that worked. So H2K can look at that and say, is the plan really just to ban out Power Vivo like Fnatic did?
But even with the sub, I think we touched on it yesterday as well. The jungle, I mean, Horo obviously was put in a bad spot here, and he did make something happen in game 2. At least he got that first blood, he got some things rolling. So that Lulux Horo, Batongjoke, Horo matchup, how influential will that be?
I mean, H2K can approach the new game, what they have, completely differently and say, hey, we're going to practice with Batongjoke, because Batongjoke has shown that he can play Elise, that he can play Nidalee, that he can play those champions that we need him to play in order to stack up to Horo. But they could also just say, hey, Lulux, we need you to practice those champions. We have 2 subs, maybe split scrims to motivate the player, give him more time in the solo queue to practice those champions. I'm not sure. I mean, I think either way, H2K should be in a pretty good spot regardless, I think.
Every single game that the Unicorns of Love go into, they're underdogs.
Yep.
And they made semifinals twice in a row in finals. What is it, man?
It's good.
It's good for them, yeah.
I like being the underdog too, because there's no pressure on you. If people expect you to perform, then you have pressure on you. You know, you're like, hey, I have to perform. And then if you go in, yeah, everyone expects you to lose. So you have nothing to lose basically if you play.
You're in the right team then for being the underdog for now at least. Oh my God, I'm sorry about that. Our last tweet to switch gears a little bit because we will be going over to NA, of course, after this when they finish setting up from @xpodware. Who do you think will win the NA LCS and why? CLG is already up there, and now Team Liquid versus TSM in the other semifinal.
Looked pretty convincing for CLG yesterday. I think this the semifinal coming up today is a little bit harder to call. I feel like if Piglet and Liquid can get themselves rolling in bottom lane over the TSM bottom lane, that should be a series they win, but then you go up to the possibilities of a final. I kind of...
Stress.
Do I want to say it? I think CLG had the potential to win. CLG, for me, is...
Talk about beating a dead horse. Oh my gosh.
Do you have faith?
Well, if TSM win, they'll definitely be beating a dead horse in Team Liquid today.
That would be very interesting. Fischer, your boy Bjergsen.
I mean, always got to cheer a little bit for Bjergsen Centaurian over there, but impossible to call, honestly. This one, yes, CLG showed up. We've also seen them then go in and completely fail right after. I think they look strong. I think both teams playing today as well, though. Liquid has looked really good in the regular season. I think if they take down TSM, they will take down CLG as well.
Yeah. So I think it all depends on today's match. I think if TSM goes to the final, they will probably win against TSM. But if TIP goes to the final, I think CLG will win.
Beating themselves. That might be it.
Good strategy.
Yeah. Good job.
What?
Keep going.
No, I think CLG has pretty good chances of winning. I mean, now that I'm no longer there, they have, you know.
Well.
True.
No, it's, yeah, I believe in CLG, I think.
Yeah, CLG. I'm thinking Team Liquid, 3-1, final, bam.
All right.
3-2 versus TSM will be intense. I have called it. I've seen in my crystal ball at home, 3-1 Team Liquid.
Well, we will see what happens. Well, Fnatic here was on the top of their game today, and they put on a show for style points, to end the series. We have a tweet from @MelsXR who tweeted, Fnatic couldn't have wrecked them any less. 3-0 in the semis, 21-0. Here's your LCS big play of the day.
It's a triple kill for Reckless. It's a quadra kill for Reckless. The power of evils run away. There will not be another pentakill on the man that got the pentakill. Fnatic, they want the style points. Reckless is running. He's got the grit. He's got the memory. He's got the pentakill.
Well, it wasn't that mechanically super gifted or anything, but it's a pentakill.
Yeah, he was right-clicking.
Yeah.
That's difficult.
AD carries. Right-clicking only. So easy.
What? Is it?
I'm just kidding. Obviously, it's super hard.
Yeah.
It's just the complaints I hear all the time when people complain about AD carries. Oh, did you just right-click and out DPS me? Yeah.
Never hit the tank.
Never hit the tank.
Focus. DPS.
But nevertheless, really nice for Reckless there and Fnatic pentakill to round things off before they head over to the finals. That means that our bracket is well settled in at least to see the finals and the third place match here in Europe. Let's take a look at who's left standing. Fnatic, no surprise there. Let's talk a little bit about those finals. Fnatic versus Origin. Of course, we already touched on VOL versus H2K. As said, the winner of that goes to Worlds if Fnatic wins the whole thing. But then there is if they win the whole thing. They're up against Origin. What are you looking forward to in this matchup? Reckless already said it. I don't think it's going to be a clean sweep. Could it be, first off?
I mean, sure, it could be. Fnatic will be favorites in this final here, but I think Origin showed up big time in the semifinal versus H2K, had a good performance in that one, at least compared to what H2K delivered. So we have also seen before when they played, Origin could at least win the early game versus Fnatic. We saw them get the 7k goal lead and then took a 3v5 team fight. Big mistake, which basically lost them the entire game. Go back and rewatch. What did you do well? Fnatic as a team tend to be more passive in the early game and say we don't want to take any risks. That is an opening for Origin to try and see if they can get early leads and snowball from there. So I think definitely they can take a game.
Yeah, if we look at the lane matchups, I know you're always talking about the AD carries. It's also a very interesting one. Rookie of the split in Niels is up there as well. You said actually on PTL you don't think he's been doing that well the last couple of weeks, and you echoed that might be something to work on.
I think definitely in the series against H2K, like he played good, but it didn't really feel like it was up to Neil's standard. And I say this as he's getting kills, which feels bad, man. But the thing is, like, obviously he played well, but sometimes he did a lot of mistakes, and it feels like it's uncharacteristic of Nils, because I rate him and value him very, very highly.
The main problem for Nils in the last few weeks, and what I was highlighting, was the fact that his positioning in team fights was not the same we saw in the start of the split. He would often be in the front line, he would get caught by hooks or charms or whatever it was, and he would end up going down. So it became more and more about what could Pekka do and Source do in these late game fights. Obviously something that he's been looking at. We know he has the talent to be one of the best AD carries in Europe, and I'm sure also he will show up in the final against Reckless, even though the bot lane is most likely just going to be a farm fest, and it's going to be about what the junglers can do and how much they can snowball potentially the top laners.
I think it's also important to highlight the fact that if you take a look at these series, Fnatic versus UL, what do you learn about Fnatic here? Nothing. What do you think about...
They play Elise.
Elise.
They play Elise. Okay, that's one thing. All right, congratulations, you will not lose one game automatically. All right, and then there is, like, on the other side, we saw Origin lose one game. And I felt that was simply because of Xpec's champion pool. He was forced on that Ahri. Possibly, maybe they're hiding something. Could be potentially that. But still, I feel that series on the other side of the bracket gives more information than the game between Fnatic and Unicorns who loved it.
Dexter?
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's always easier if you just don't give anything away. And if you get pushed to your limits, you have to reveal all your strategies, basically. But I think Fnatic didn't really reveal too much. And OG, I mean, they still have time. You know, 1 week is a lot of practice. And I think all of their players have, like, good champion pools, and Soa's amazing. They play every champion basically in their role that they have to. I mean, they have more tools to beat Fnatic than the rest of the teams, I think.
Well, we'll have to see that finals, Fnatic versus OG. Live coverage from Stockholm's Hovet Arena will begin on Saturday, August 22nd at 5 p.m. Central European Time. That is 8 a.m. Pacific. It's going to start with the fight for third place, H2K versus UOL there. And we'll also be joined by Yamato Cannon there in Sweden. So, yay. It's also a home match for you then.
Yeah.
Cool. Gonna be fun.
Sverige.
Gonna be fun. Well, thank you for joining us here, Dexter, as well, for lending a hand here on the desk. Today's playoff battles, they aren't over yet, though it's time for the North American LCS semifinals. So we're going to send it right over to Dash and the desk in Los Angeles, California. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. And, well, from myself and everyone here, thank you for tuning in. And keep watching, because NA has a lot of action coming up.
TSM.